Welcome, American Horror Story fans. We are back for another exciting episode of The Creep on American Horror Story, My Roanoke Nightmare. I am the infamous host, the Elvis Man, and with me, as always, is my lovely woman, Miss Melody. We are recapping, I think, the best episode of Roanoke thus far. If anybody watched it, they know exactly what I'm talking about. This episode, we shouldn't even be calling it Roanoke anymore. We should be calling it, like, American Horror Story Massacre. This was a truly amazing episode, even though we're still getting robbed at the time. But we remember at the end of the last episode that Shelby had called the cops on Lee because she was really pissed about Lee and Matt conspiring to burn the house down after they got Flora back, even though they still have yet to find her. And now Lee's out of the picture after being arrested because they think that she took the kid. But now we actually get right into the argument because Shelby saw Matt out there with Lady Gaga's character, Skageth, or something like that. I'm still yet to really learn how to pronounce this person's name. But Shelby's pissed as all hell, and they're duking it out verbally in the house at this point, and he has no recollection of what the hell happened. He was out there getting busy with a couple of rednecks watching him, but he has no recollection at all. He even says, it's like somebody carved a piece of that out of my brain. I don't know, maybe we're using some transorbital lobotomy action on this guy in the cuts or something, but doesn't have any recollection of it at all. He even collapses in the corner after Shelby keeps verbally attacking him. You know, who the hell is she? What, how can I trust you? And he just collapses into a corner and almost starts crying because he has seriously no recollection of this whatsoever. But we see the narrators, Lily Rabe, actually, who is obviously Shelby, talking about, you know, I saw sincerity in his eyes. He truly believes he did not remember any of this stuff. But so Shelby, she kind of like, they have a moment, and she heads upstairs to the bathroom. Looks like she's about to take a nice relaxing bath or something like that. And this is one of our first big shout outs to Murder House, this scene. They have the old school cast iron big tub. She goes to throw the curtain back, and what do you know? There is a piggy man monster guy, whatever you want to call him, comes out at her with a knife. I mean, goes after her with a slash, and she manages to duck out and run. But as soon as she turns another corner of the hall, there's Mr. Piggy Man again, brandishing the knife again. But Matt, he's up there like that and tackles this thing. And the knife goes scurrying across the floor, so they run. This is some really spooky shit. It's the exact
I think
same.
the Piggy Man is probably the most exciting thing about this season so far, just because we really don't know who he is or why he was sacrificed at the fire with the butcher, and he just keeps showing up, so you know he is a ghost or a spirit. But obviously, I guess he can be taken down. Dennis O'Hare comes in with the axe, and boom, he says Croatoan, and he disappears. There's that magic word that we keep seeing.
Dr.
And of
Lawrence.
course, they're surprised when they see him, like, "Oh, thank goodness you're here."
I can't believe it. I thought he was dead. I mean, after we saw him in the house, and that mysterious figure came out and grabbed him, and that was like the last of the footage. I mean, they kind of gave us the idea that he was dead, but come to find out, there he is, alive and well, and a lot more clean shaven than we saw him in that video too. And he buries this axe in the back of Mr. Piggy Man, and as he goes to get up, he just goes, Croatoan, and the lights dim and he's gone. But that's our first little cut scene, and we come back and we see Shelby and Matt obviously still rattled as hell, and they're talking with Dr. Elias, and he pours himself a nice drink, and he kind of sits down and starts talking about the history of the house and also where this whole Croatoan thing comes from. Because Shelby's heard it so many times already, even Matt too, when they discovered those crazy hillbilly bumpkin kids that were feeding on that big mama sow pig that looked like it had a row of boobies. So
Gross.
we see Dr. Elias kind of laying it out, telling us, you know, I lived in the house very briefly, but I technically own it. It's my place, and it's only through a fault of taxes that he couldn't make his payment on his property, and then that's when the house went up for auction, and that's where Matt and Shelby come in, and they were the ones that actually bought the house.
That just seemed like such, I don't know, that almost seems like bullshit to me. I think there's more to this guy than, taxes. It doesn't seem that simple. Like, why could it be that simple? Oh, taxes on a haunted house. It doesn't make sense to me. So I think we're going to see a little bit something different. I don't think he lost the house because of taxes.
Does seem kind of far-fetched, in all honesty. It just seems way too smooth. But, I mean, Dr. Elias, I mean, we saw him before, and he was basically there doing the research on the nurse massacres there, or these wet nurses that were, well, not wet nurse, excuse me, no, that's not the right word. These elderly keepers, they were murdering their patients. You know, they were doing the murder on the wall, but they never, in the straight painted letters, but they never got a chance to actually finish it. They never got the R at the end of murder. And that's where Elias is saying, yeah, I mean, even murderers were scared in this house. But we really get a lot of in-depth background on the house and on more stuff throughout this episode. It filled in a lot of gaps. It answered a lot of questions. And Dennis O'Hare, Dr. Elias, he immediately starts talking about the Chen family, which is this nice Asian family that moved to America, having the American dream of owning a nice house, you know, doing the whole American thing. They give each other American names. They only speak English in the house. And
this was in 1973. So I love the throwback with the clothes, the setting, seeing the Partridge Family on the TV. They're eating the TV dinners on their TV dinner trays, and it's very cute 70s. Until you hear a very loud and pronounced thud on the ceiling, and they think it's their younger daughter. So they're all getting up like, what was that? What was that? Was it our kid? They go to investigate, and the youngest daughter thinks it's a great idea. You hear a loud noise upstairs, so automatically you run upstairs. That's the only thing that she thought to do. And then they get to the top of the stairs, and I thought this was actually very interesting. There's a group of pigs just rooting around upstairs. They're scared of the pigs. How did the pigs get there? But also, this is the exact same place where we saw all of those pigtails nailed to the wall in a previous episode.
And then waving on the wall. Yeah, that was pretty creepy.
Yeah, and that's where the pigs came from. And then, of course, you see Mr. Piggy Man at the top of the stairs. So it's always great to see him.
Pushes the eldest Chen's sister down, and she ends up like almost breaking her arm, or, you know, could have been a lot worse falling downstairs. But yeah, Piggy Man is obviously, he's been there for quite some time. If he's been there back in the 70s, and obviously he seems to keep making appearances, and obviously Dennis O'Hare, Dr. Elias, knows a lot more about him. But we see the Chen family trying to burn these things in their own kind of religious way for protection of their family. And obviously it does not work. The evil of the Roanoke haunting is just way too much. So we see Thomason, the butcher, the leader of the group, show up, scream, and then do one of her trademark, you know, hatchet tosses straight into Mr. Chin's sternum and takes him down. But obviously we know that the whole family is doomed. But then, of course, we move on and we start talking more about the other victims of the house and how Dr. Elias was running through and explaining more. And this is a really cool one, too. We actually hear that in the late 1700s, I think it was 1792, that the house was built by a Mott, one of the Mott family, one of Danny's oldest relatives, actually. Danny was our killer psycho rich boy from Freak Show. And I never thought that we would really bring them up again, but I think it's kind of interesting how they throw that name in there. So far we got 2 references to previous seasons tonight. They've got the shout out to Murder House of the Piggy Man coming out of the shower. That was basically one of the doc's patients who just could not look in mirrors because he was afraid of the Piggy Man coming to get him. And then, of course, the Mott family salute, the builder of the house originally in 1792. And we go on even more, and Dr. Elias is saying how I know a lot about this, but it's not just because of research. I was out there in the woods watching the house, and the sisters, the nurses, the murder sisters, come out and actually told me their story and how this happened. And this is where it starts getting really freaking grotesque. I mean, anybody who's ever listened to Game of Thrones, for instance, they've heard the term drawn and quartered. And me personally, I had a general idea as to what it might be, but this really, really kind of makes it a little bit more obvious. One of the sisters ends up getting nooses or wrist wrapped by ropes, and then on opposing sides of her, like 2, 3, maybe 4 people, and they just start yanking these ropes in opposite directions. And we literally see this sister screaming in pain, and then it gets really good. We know it's going to happen out of nowhere. We see a whole shot of the sister, and off go the arms. There she lies, bleeding out. And the other sister is just shit scared at this point. I have no idea what's going to happen to me. And of course, Thomason says, don't worry, you're going to have lots of company over the years. And that's when they put her head down in a chopping block and give her the old axe with the freaking cleaver. So, yeah, Dennis O'Hare, Mr. Elias, is definitely in tune to what's going on here. And he gets so excited about his research because he's really hoping to write a book out of it one day. And that's when he reveals the big thing about how these ghosts are so violent. There's a 6-day sequence of what the Native Americans, refer to as the blood moon. And it's a 6-day lunar cycle where these spirits go from being, a pain in the ass and scaring people to basically murderous, vindictive spirits. Like they can actually break through the physical world and kill people. It gets pretty in-depth. So, Dr. Elias, he's basically telling them, this is the first night of that blood moon. We got to get the hell out of here. And Shelby and Matt are like, no, we can't leave. We still got to find Flora. And as Dennis O'Hare is leaving, and he's saying, if the butcher, Thomason, has Flora, she's doomed already. She's already dead. And they refuse to believe it. And that's when they say, well, no, she ran off and searched for Priscilla, which they thought was her little imaginary friend. But as we learned from Cricket last episode, that she was a real person. And she's a ghost that's basically kind of trying to help Flora in a way. Because if the butcher, Thomason, is this crazy and this murderous, obviously she wants to keep her human friend away from this psychopath. A lot to take in, but like I said, it's a really, really intense episode. And it just got gorier from there. So out of the woods again. The evil, evil woods. And we see them running through. Dr. Elias says, if it was Priscilla, I know where she likes to play. So they go out in the woods again. This time, luckily, it's daytime, so at least they can see where the hell they're going. And they come upon this clearing, and they see Lady Gaga's character hanging out next to a tree. Well, Dr. Elias doesn't, but Shelby and Matt do. And Shelby, as pissed as she is at Matt about that, she wants some freaking revenge. She wants to go and kick this lady's ass. So something snaps in her. Instead of just standing there, she goes to give chase. A lot to take in. Matt, he still has absolutely no idea what happened in the woods. He sees Scythe or Scythe, or again, I have no idea how to pronounce this chick's name yet. And he's just frozen solid. It's like he can't move. He sees her and just like, it just kind of blinks out again in like crazy zone out mode. Kind of like that same look that we saw when he was tagging Gaga from behind by that tree in the last episode. But the more we watch, the more we're starting to realize that Gaga's character, she seemed like she was a follower of Thomason the Butcher at first. And we saw her in the earlier episodes around the fire when they were sacrificing the pig guy. We saw her just kind of like as the right-hand man, just kind of kneeling next to her, doing her creepy thing. And you're starting to kind of get the impression that maybe she's a little bit more than just a follower. Maybe she's got something a little more going on. But as Shelby's chasing her through the woods, that's when they come upon this really large clearing in an open field. And she sees these hunters, 3 hunters, that were in the house, I think, in like the earlier 80s, like 82 or 83, maybe it was 81, but they all were there staying at the house as for like a hunting trip. And out of nowhere, they ended up turning their rifles on themselves. We see them walking out, and they're like missing chunks of their face and the backs of their heads. They committed suicide in the house. So we know that they kind of got pushed to the edge, but, well, suicide. And that's when they start seeing the other people. Dr. Elias and Shelby kind of come running out, and Matt's there, and he's just staring off, and there's this big group of people. And it's all the people that Dr. Elias was talking about. It's the sisters. It's the Piggy Band. It's the Chen family. It's Priscilla. Flora's there playing with them, like tag, but she's blindfolded. And as much as they want to give chase and go in after her and try and bring her home, the doc is like, no, you can't do this. These are dead, dangerous people. They know me. She knows me. Let me go and let me get her. So he beckons with Priscilla to let her go. Let Flora come back with him. And that's when we hear this really strange horn call. I mean, it's like Lord of the Rings when they're sounding the attack, kind of. And out of nowhere, Dr. Elias gets 3 arrows, center mass, like that. We see a spurt of blood come out of his mouth, and he just collapses. And when you know it, it's the Roanoke colony giving chase, coming after him with bows and arrows like a bunch of Indians. I gotta admit, when I first saw that episode in that scene, I was like, I thought that it may have been like Roanoke Indians or some shit. I don't know. We have no idea how many people are stuck on this land. So they haul ass out of there. Poor Dr. Elias, he's set and he's gone. He's gone. So as Matt and Shelby get to the front door, a very calm, a very collected, a very passive Cricket opens the door and says, hey, you two look afraid. You ready to do it my way now? And that's our end scene for that moment. We move on into the house again. Cricket advising Matt and Shelby, we have to do something soon. We have to get out of here soon. You basically put a target on my back because I promised the butcher that you would leave. And yet here you remain, which is only going to piss her off even more. So Matt and Shelby don't really know what to do. They're like stuck in this rock and a hard place. They want to get Flora back, but they also want to cherish their own lives, of course. They don't want to die at the hands of the Roanoke ghosts. And Cricket's like, okay, I guess I'm just going to have to go out and try again. So he goes out and he ends up speaking with the butcher again. And he's talking about, please just give us the girl and we'll leave. What else was she saying right there? I think that she was probably trying to tell Cricket to get the hell out of there now. There's not going to be another warning. Leave or face the consequences. Of course, they wanted to still try and find Flora. So he's like, okay, well, I'm going to have to go out yet again and try and reason with these people. So we see Cricket walking out in the lonely, dark woods yet again. This time it's different, though. He doesn't actually come back right away, but when he does, he is a fright. I mean, he is scared shitless. He went out when it was dark. He come back when it was light. And, of course, Matt and Shelby are like, what'd you find out? What did the butcher say? And he says, I didn't even talk to the butcher this time. I talked to the real bitch that was in power. And I believe that was actually his words, too. Such a spunky little gay dude. But we see him in the footage of him actually going out there, and he's got his little tarot card of protection with him, hoping that it's going to protect him. And he keeps calling out to whoever's there, come out, show yourself, and turns around, and there's Gaga's character, and she gives him like a Sonya Blade, kiss of dust death in the eyes or something. And we see him like totally white-eyed after that, like she made him blind like that. And he's basically got an old school like druid's knife to his neck. And he's like, I understand now. It's not Thomason that's in charge now. It's you. You're the one that is really calling the shots. And, of course, that appeals to her. And he tries to bargain with her a little more, and he just wants to understand. And that's where Gaga's character, she kind of, all right, let's kind of give him a glimpse of what's really going on here. And like I said, a lot of origin stories in this episode, lots of origin. They cover the history of the house, and now we're going to actually dive into the history of the actual Roanoke County. You know, they always say that the Croatoan thing was carved into that tree, and that was where they vanished. But no, they moved inland to get to this land, and this house that they live in, this land, is the true site of the missing Roanoke colony. So we see Cricket get pulled up by Gaga, and now he's got his vision, but apparently they were transported back in time. She's that powerful that she flashes him back to the 1700s. And she's showing him that the fields are good, the crops are plentiful, they're being well fed, they're being very well taken care of, they're living off the land, but there's more to it than that. To these ancient gods, pagan gods almost, and in pagan religion, they actually would have certain things that they would give to their gods for better harvests, better crops, things of that nature. And Cricket comes upon the colony while they were still alive, and they see Thomason with Priscilla chained to a rock. And Thomason's got this big boulder kind of thing in her hand. And she's kind of chanting a little bit. They look down at Priscilla, and out of nowhere, bashes her head clean in with the rock. And as he's telling this story, Shelby and Matt are like, holy shit, it's about human sacrifice, which in pagan religion actually was how it worked. They would sacrifice people to appease their gods and bring better rains and harvests and crops. But he's telling them that this is no devil worship. These are ancient, cruel gods, much older than Christianity. Because Matt and Shelby, you're thinking like devil worship, especially after what happened with Mason, when they saw him up on that tree on the pentagram and he was just charred to a crisp. And of course, Shelby remembers seeing the piggy guy get roasted over the fire too. So lots of human sacrifice. But then we blast back to the colony again, and we see Ambrose, who is Thomason's son, played by Wes Bentley, and he's kind of leading the mutineers of the colony because they do not agree at all to what Thomason is doing. They say the Wood Witch, Gaga, has influenced you too much. You've lost your way. You become one with evil. You're no longer a child of God. You're just this evil person. And Ambrose basically says, we are not going to be a part of this. And Thomason thinks it's all fine and dandy, and it's kind of clever how that after she's done all that she has for them and produced for them, provided for them, that they would turn on her and go mutinous. And she says it's easy to pull mutiny when you got full bellies. You didn't have any problems with what I was doing before. So Gaga goes and approaches Thomason and says, you need to discipline these people. They're like children, and children need discipline. And she also tells her more of the power that she has right now. She doesn't realize it, but she can enslave the entire colony to do her bidding for all of eternity with the help of Gaga, this Wood Witch. So they concoct this kind of crazy idea, and you do see them in cahoots, obviously, but the next thing you see is Thomason talking at the head of this gigantic long table where all the Roanokers are, and she basically tells them, I was wrong. I was so close to being influenced. I shouldn't have done what I did. I want to repent. I want to come back to God. And Ambrose, being right next to her because he is her son after all, comes up and says and announces to everyone, well, as God would like it, those who repent can be forgiven. So Thomason, in her generosity and her apology, I guess you could say, brings forth this basket, which look almost like a bunch of small Granny Smith apples. They're green like Granny Smith apples, but they're small, almost like slightly smaller than a tennis ball. I'm not quite sure what those were. Maybe they're like a crab apple or something. I don't know. But I thought crab apples were red or other colors. But what do I know? So as they all start chowing down on these apples, we start hearing coughing and gagging. So you would think, like, okay, somebody's choking, but no, it's happening to everybody at the table. And next thing you see, Ambrose is starting to hold his throat too, because he actually took a chunk out of one of the apples and notices that everybody starts puking. It's like she poisoned them, the whole lot of the apples. And then as Ambrose is kind of falling to his knees, Thomason comes over and just sinks the hatchet right center mass, right into his sternum, and kills him. And then she addresses them all, saying, you know what, you're all fools. If you will not serve me in this life, you will definitely serve me in the next. And that's when she just goes on a rampage. She takes her hatchet, starts cutting throats, hacking people up. I mean, we see people crawling away for their lives. She comes over and just buries the hatchet in their backs. And she basically says, we will consecrate this land with our blood. We will be here forever. And then we see Thomason go and approach Lady Gaga after all the Roanoke colony is dead. She killed every last one of them. And what the poison didn't do, her hatchet did. And so she kneels down in front of Gaga and basically offers her own throat. So in order to really, enslave all their souls to her, I guess she actually has to be dead too. That's where I'm kind of going with this one. I don't know. Were there other kind of pagan rituals, hon, that might require you to kill yourself to go on?
Not that I've read of. I think she had just seen the power that she had and knew that she wanted her as an accomplice. So she trusted her when she sacrificed herself that she would be with her and have power like her. And more than anything, she wanted to keep that land. So she would do anything to protect that land and continue to stay there.
She definitely had the crazy vibe going on there. Sometimes people who are true believers in something can be more dangerous than religious fanatics, but then again, I guess that's a kind of a razor wire that you're walking right there between fanatic and religious psycho. But so we go back and we see Shelby and Matt, and they're still talking with Cricket, and Cricket was still obviously speaking with Gaga at this point. He's kind of recapping everything that he just went through. And he says, the only way I could bargain with her was to give her something that she wanted. And Shelby and Matt, of course, like, well, what is that? And he's like, well, I offered her Matt. And they're like, what the hell are you talking about? And he's basically saying, I'm bluffing with them. I'm trying to let them know that we could offer something to them so we could try and get Flora back and then get the hell out of here. And just like that, phone goes off. And he's like, oh, that's my Uber driver. Really? I think that was our comic relief right there. So we see him in the back of this Dodge Charger. Even though if you look at the wheel with the guy driving, they removed the Dodge logo. I think it has something to do with, just endorsements or property rights or something. And dude lays on the brakes because Flora comes running out in front of the road where she almost gets hit. We're talking like that close. And, of course, Cricket sees her from the back seat, so he gives chase. I don't know. After just being hit by a car and being chased by a ghost colony, I'd probably run too. But out into the woods, even further into these mysterious woods. And we blast back to Matt and Shelby again in the house, just kind of trying to take it easy, trying to get some rest. But they both know if they try and pass out, that is when the ghosts actually show up. This is the time where they like to really plague people because they're defenseless when they're asleep. And let's face it, every time that they've gone to sleep up until now, there's always something crazy going on. There's like the pig noises that Matt heard outside. There's the colony themselves that made the appearance on that the camera surveillance stuff that Matt put up. And yeah, and like I said, it happens again. They pass out. Shelby's on the couch on Matt's lap, and he wakes up, and it's dark now, and Cricket still has not returned. So Matt looks outside, and he's hearing like these voices. I didn't touch base on it earlier on, but when Dr. Elias was going through the woods with Matt and Shelby, they hear these whispers. Anybody who's ever watched Lost and they heard of the others, it's exactly what it's like. They hear all these whispers around them. But Dr. Elias says, whatever you do, don't listen to them. something tells me that there's some kind of a influence or like some kind of a like a siren's spell almost that lures people by that sound and influences them. So Matt, hearing these voices, he doesn't really pay any attention to what Elias warned him. He's walking deeper and deeper, and he's just being drawn outside. And he luckily has Lee's gun still. So he's packing, and he's walking around. He's trying to figure out what exactly is luring him into the woods. But if we've been paying attention thus far, something wants a piece of Matt. So he looks down, and he actually comes upon that bunker where Dr. Elias was staying, where they found that footage. And, like, there's candles lit, like, there's somebody down there. And Matt, of course, thinks that, you know, him and Elias are the only ones who really knew about this besides Shelby, and Shelby was inside. So he's thinking that somehow he got away. Even though he got shot with 3 arrows, he must have crawled back somehow. I doubt that very much. So he goes down, and when you know it, it's Gaga's character waiting for him down there. And she's got her, I don't know, I guess that would be 17th century seductress dress, druid dress, whatever you call it. And Matt's coming at her. He's still got the gun pointing at her, but she just kind of does one of these and just brushes his hand away and drops the gun. And Matt is just instantly under some kind of a spell. A lot of touchy-feely going on. But when Cricket was being led by Gaga after he got hit with the blindness and she was holding a knife to his throat, he was telling her, you're a woman and you're going to have more womanly needs, even as your power grows with the passing phases of the moon. So obviously that must mean that she has got some kind of a carnal need to get laid, because she really wants a piece of Matt. We saw that in the last episode when he was getting his hump on. But now we see him, you know, doing the seductor thing, and he's pawing and kissing at her, and it's some weird shit, man. And we start getting back on Gaga's backstory. Like I said, lots of backstory action here. We come to find out that she is a descendant of Druids and their Roman conquerors. And she stows away on an old Spanish ship in the 1700s and ends up sailing to the New World. But while on this ship, there's a lot of bad stuff that happens. A lot of the members die. A lot of them don't make it. And upon reaching America, that's when they discover her, and they think that it's her fault that all these people died. They'd angered the sea gods by bringing a woman on board. So they end up locking her up, and they're saying, okay, well, we're going to burn this chick as a witch. We're going to burn her at the stake. And she refuses to be killed that easily. She lures one of the guards over to her cage, and just as she leans in to kind of give him a little love peck or something, she pulls out his dagger and hits him right in the neck with it. Next thing we see, the doors open, all the guards are dead. She's got skill for a tiny little thing. Of course, back then, because of the New World, they blamed it on the Indians and the Native Americans. And then we see her kind of going off into the woods, and Matt is explaining that it's old magic met with the New World, and Gaga's character kind of gave birth to almost like a new power, a new religious power from her old background to the New World. And after we finally get the recap of her backstory, we see Shelby coming out of the house, finally woken up, and when you know it, there's the Roanoke County, pitchforks and scythes and wheat cutters and torches and clubs, and Thomason, leading the pack, has got Flora right there with her, dragging her along. And of course, Shelby starts screaming for Matt, and he finally snaps out of it and crawls off her and starts hauling ass upstairs. Well, not upstairs, up the ladder. And that's when he comes to Shelby's aid. And we see Thomason the Butcher. Enough is enough. It's time for blood. No more talk. No more deals. No more barters. So she goes to pull the head back of Flora and cut her throat. But that's when we see little Priscilla come back and just like club Thomason and let her go. Thomason, pissed, of course, because she just lost her little sacrifice, slaps the hell out of Priscilla. And Matt and Shelby run inside with Flora and lock the door. So they are upstairs, and they're trying to get Flora to talk to her, but of course she's scared out of her freaking mind. And all she can keep saying is the man. The man. the man. And that's when Shelby kind of is thinking, like, what man? She goes to the window and looks out. The Roanoke Colony captured Cricket after he went chasing after Flora. So he never actually left. It's like Matt says in the show, he never got very far at all. This is where it gets gruesome. I told you, this episode should have been called American Horror Story Massacre. Between all the death and all the blood and all the craziness and the mass killing of the Roanoke Colony, the other people that lived in the house that had died. We'll get to that in a second. We actually flash back to the Uber driver who was driving Cricket, and when Cricket goes and gives chase after Flora, he's like, I waited for him. He never came back, so I went off, hoping that everything was okay. But that's when we realized that as soon as he chased Flora into the woods, that's when the Roanoke Colony got him. So we go back and we see Thomason approaching him with her ever-favorite cleaving tool, and this is when poor Cricket gets it bad. She hits him right in the gut with it and just starts dragging it across his stomach, and all we can hear is Cricket screaming bloody murder. And it shows this big gaping wound in his stomach, and he's just, poor guy, he's just standing there, barely standing there, being held up by one of the Roanoke Colony, and we can see his guts kind of emerging. That's when Ambrose, Wes Bentley, her son, comes over with this big iron hook, sticks it right into the hole in his gut, and starts grabbing and pulling out his entrails, his intestines. And we can hear Thomason yelling, back, back, telling the two holding on to Cricket to pull him as Wes is pulling out more and more of his intestines. Before we know it, we see poor Cricket on the ground, dead as hell, and there's probably like a good 20 feet of intestines just kind of hanging there from that hook. So Shelby and Matt, they're just terrified. They couldn't do anything to help the poor guy. And Matt's like, I've heard of disemboweling before. I'm not really quite sure why they would talk about that. I mean, we all hear about disemboweling from some crazy flick, like a horror movie or an action movie from medieval times or something, or if you like to watch Vikings. But I don't know, regardless, strange. But we see Thomason hold her bloody hatchet aiming upward at the window, basically motioning to them, you're next. And that was it. That's our cutscene. Yet again, another short episode of American Horror Story. Not quite sure why we kind of got robbed on our time. They used to be like a good 47 minutes long, at the very least 42, 43 minutes, but they've only been averaging out about like maybe 35 to 38 minutes per episode now. And I'll have to say this. It's like I tell everybody, never ever judge American Horror Story for the entire season until you at least get about 4 episodes in. I'm so happy that my theory came true this time around, because let's face it, this was a fucking cool episode. This is a gory-ass American Horror Story episode. It's everything that we love about American Horror Story. And, of course, Ryan Murphy pushing the envelope is what he can get away with. It's like South Park when they push the envelope. What can they get away with? But this is grotesque. I've never seen a disemboweling before, and that was pretty gruesome. I'm not quite sure what we can expect on the next week's episode, but we already know this. We're not going to see Cricket now. What do you think, Melly? Where are we going to go next episode? We've got a lot of background. We covered a lot of territory here. We still have not seen Evan Peters, but however, there's been theories flying everywhere that he was the cameraman that was talking to the people being interviewed, and I personally don't believe that at all. It didn't sound like him at all. And then there are those who have been saying, oh, well, it's the Piggy Man, which would make a lot of sense because we keep seeing his name in the credits, and we haven't seen him anywhere. And you can't really miss Evan Peters' voice. It's a very distinct voice. But for him to be the Pig Man, that would make a lot of sense. But if you see the Pig Man, you're actually watching him as he's chasing Shelby and Matt in that earlier scene. This guy is like a skinny, bony frame. I mean, I don't even think Evan Peters is that scrawny. I mean, we're talking like Holocaust scrawny here. But what do you think, huh? Where are we gonna finally see him? Where are we gonna go next?
I don't know. I think their supposedly next episode is the last in a the beginning 6 episodes are supposed to be a story, and then they're going in a different direction for episodes, the next couple of episodes, and then the last episode is its own thing. So I think they're wrapping up the story of not necessarily Roanoke, but maybe wrapping up the story of Matt and Shelby. Maybe we'll find out who the pig man is. Maybe we'll get a new narrative. Maybe they'll go back to who the production crew actually are. Maybe we'll see the death of the Skavik, which is Lady Gaga's character, which is based on Scottish mythology of a warrior woman.
That's how you pronounce her name?
Skavik. Mm-hmm.
Ah, okay. I'm going to have to practice that.
I did a little bit of research today, too.
But you got to admit, that was definitely the coolest episode we've seen to date yet. And in all honesty, I'm really, really hoping that we really break down some barriers next episode. We are going into the 5th one. And as I mentioned before in our previous episodes, this is a very, very strange season of American Horror Story. One, because they're trying to go more on factual stuff. And we're not going to get our 13 episodes like we normally get this time around. We're only getting 10. So I'm hoping that Ryan Murphy's going to really, really deliver on American Crime Story this year, because I'm kind of pissed that I'm not getting my extra 3 episodes. I mean, I've waited 9.5 months for this new season, and then to top it all off, they kept it such a mystery for so long, and we only get 10, not 13. But it's kind of like everybody out there who watches Game of Thrones. They're pissed as hell because we were supposed to get at least 10 episodes of that, and then we find out there's only 2 seasons left. We get 7 episodes next season and only 6 the following. That kind of sucks. But don't rob us of this, man. We wait so long to watch American Horror Story, so give us our 13 episodes, Ryan.
They've already confirmed a 7th season. Do you think that they're going to draw out the theme for season 7 as well and make a big deal about it? I think stretching it out was uncalled for and unnecessary, and it brought a lot of hype, but it also raised the expectations for this season so much. Not that I don't really like this season, but I don't think it's been justified to tease us that much about it. Not yet. Maybe it will change next week. I just hope they don't stretch it out again like they did. Just tell us what the theme is.
Well, to make matters more interesting, again, we've already been reading about how they've guaranteed that there's going to be a season 7. It's this big mystery. Ryan's keeping it really, really hush-hush, like so hush-hush. It's only him and maybe one of the other writers that actually know about it. And I think the reason for that being is that the photos of the Croatoan, the tree, the Croatoan carved out, it got released into the internet. And that kind of probably pissed him off a little bit because he wanted to keep this hush-hush. He wanted to surprise everyone. And now we've already got rumors again that season 7, we're not going to know anything about that either. It's going to be just like this year. We're going to probably get a buttload of teasers, and not a single one of them are going to be right. Because I've yet to actually really think that out of all those teasers that we saw, did we really honestly see one that kind of matched up with the Roanoke? I don't really recall. I mean, we saw so many weird ones. Alien abductions, lady being attacked by the creature of the Black Lagoon, spiders crawling into a dude's head. The weird hair thing that was in the tub. I mean, I can't really recall any of them having anything to really do with Roanoke.
The lone house on a hill, it was kind of yellow, like a yellow sky in the background, and there was smoke coming out of the chimney. If you listen, you can hear pigs in the background of that one.
And a chainsaw.
Yep, that's the one. But other than that, I agree with you. I didn't really see any of the promos hint at the season.
Well, let's only hope that they're really, really going to cap it off great, because we've only got 6 episodes left. And there's, of course, all the haters on the internet that say, oh, this season sucks. This season sucks. They said the same damn thing about Freak Show, and there are just hundreds of people out there on the chat forums that say, I love Freak Show. Each season has its own perks. I mean, I love Freak Show because that was the one where they really committed to letting us know that they're all connected. And when we do actually start covering the previous seasons after Roanoke is over, we are going to be really discussing some interesting theories about how this is going to work. Let's not forget about some of those other leaked photos that we saw of like Evan Peters looking like Charles Manson. I don't really recall Evan doing anything in the movies right now that would really require him to look that beardy. And there were a lot of theories, especially because of the pig thing. We remember that back in, if anybody remembers the Manson trials, that his disciples killed that actress that was pregnant and then used her own blood to write the word pig on her door. And then we saw that one Bazin crib little mini teaser clip where that weird kind of monster hand reached up for the knife that was hanging from the what do you call those things? I can't remember.
Mobile?
Yes, one of those little baby mobiles, but only it was constructed out of some really sinister looking metal. And this monster hand comes up and grabs that knife and rips it down. But if you look closely, the mobile forms the word pig. There's a lot to go on here, and we can only hope that they're really going to touch base and they're really going to deliver and keep their promise of showing us how every one of the seasons is connected in this one. They've given a couple of shout-outs to the other ones, like the Murder House incident with Piggy Man coming out of the shower. And, of course, Danny Mott's great relative building the Roanoke house. But I really want to see something definitive. Kind of like when we saw Pepper being picked up by the nun from Asylum. I want to see something really solid that's going to connect them all now. What I think it's going to be, though, is it's going to have something to do with the evil that really makes all this crazy shit happen. It's got to be the evil power that kind of links them all somehow, I think. But I'm totally spitballing on this one. We're not going to yak all night. We've had our good little episode recap for American Horror Story, My Roanoke Nightmare, Episode 4. We are going to be back next Thursday, 9 o'clock. Always a thank you to Monkey Caviar and Tiny for making us a part of this awesome video action. And please, by all means, hit us up in the comments. Give us a like. Let us know what it is that you want to hear more of. If you think that I use my hands too much. Anything. Get involved. We'd love to hear from our fans, and we'd like to hear people what they got to think about, too. After all, there's a lot of great minds out there. And somebody might think of something there's no way in hell we could ever think of it. And that's the cool shit that makes these kinds of, recaps fun. We like to hear theories. We want to hear different ideas of what's going to happen. But as always, American Horror Story The Creep with the Elvis Man and his lovely woman, Miss Melody. We will be back next Thursday, 9 p.m. to recap Episode 5. But in the meantime, try and let us know if there's something you guys want to know more about.